Denis Villeneuve, the prodigal son of science fiction, one of the hottest directors on the planet right now, in his prime, has had an exceptional career. Let's break down his entire filmography and how he started making movies.
What's up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And today's a director spotlight on one of the greatest living directors, Denis Villeneuve. He started out with very intense dramas and very emotional dramas, and he's moved into becoming basically the landmark science fiction director of our time, most recently with Dune Part Two, Dune, Blade Runner, and Arrival being his last four pictures, and they're all sensational pieces of science fiction. But his work with drama and with mystery are up there as well. Movies like Incendies, like Enemy, and like Prisoners are exceptional pieces of filmmaking. I'm a huge fan of his. What was the first movie you would say that you saw of Villeneuve's?
Denis Villeneuve, the first movie I probably remember seeing, I'm going to guess, is Prisoners, I would say. I think that was the first one I was exposed to. Then I went Enemy, and then Sicario, and obviously in order since then. I didn't even see Incendies until last year for the first time, which was an exceptional film, one of the best twists I've ever seen in a movie, and an incredible thriller, and just one of those movies that people don't really know about exists in his filmography, but it's really terrific.
So Incendies was my first experience with him, and it was something I rented because it got so much awards recognition, and I didn't even know who he was as a filmmaker, and this is his fourth movie. I saw that film, and I was like absolutely blown away, and since then, wasn't really, this was before I was really into him as a filmmaker, and then with Prisoners, that was like a big one for me. Enemy and Prisoners came out the same year. And so after those three films, I was like, this guy is incredible. And then obviously Sicario. But
now we're really into him.
Yeah, Incendies.
Really into Denis.
That was my first film experience of a Denis Villeneuve film. And it was absolutely amazing and floored me. I'd never seen anything like it before. And it still is to this day one of his greatest achievements as a filmmaker.
It really is. It's a striking film in incredible characters and storytelling. Denis Villeneuve in his entire career has been nominated for 3 Academy Awards. He's been nominated for 5 BAFTAs. He's been nominated for 5 awards at the Cannes Film Festival, including winning the Canal Award for Best Short Film, which he made called Next Floor, which is an excellent, surreal short film that he made. You can watch it on YouTube. It's about 9 minutes long. It's really excellent visual effects. He's also won 6 Genie Awards. Now, the Genie Awards were the Canadian Screen Awards. That's basically the equivalent to an Oscar in Canada. But they ended that show in 2014, that ceremony. So
they put the genie in the bottle?
They don't exist. The genie does not come out of the bottle anymore. But he's obviously prolific, and Incendies was a film that was an international nominee, Canada's submission for the Academy Awards that year. Now, Denis Villeneuve, a little background on this guy. Where's he from?
Where is he from?
Well, he was born in 1967 in Quebec, Canada. He studied cinema at the, I'm not French, so forgive my pronunciations, Université de Québec.
Wow, beautiful.
Montreal.
Wow.
Montreal. Look at Italian-Spanish roll. Villeneuve began his career making short films and won Radio Canada's Youth Film Competition in 1991 with his film La Course Europe C. He cites Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, and the Coen brothers, as well as Paul Thomas Anderson, Ridley Scott, Sam Mendes, Jean-Luc Godard, Francois Truffaut, and Ingmar Bergman, and Christopher Nolan as his main cinematic influences. He also... Filmboy, he's definitely a filmboy. August 32nd on Earth, which was his first feature, his debut in 1998, premiered at Un Certain Regard section at the 1998 Cannes Film Festival. Now, that's a specific part of the Cannes Film Festival.
That's non-competition for the main festival.
But usually it's held for very surreal, offbeat films. So odd movies, weird movies go there, for lack of a better term.
And it's more of it's an exhibition there as opposed to being in the competition for the festival.
Yes, it was. There's also the Canadian entry for Best Foreign Language Film at the 71st Academy Awards. His second film, Maelstrom, which came out in 2000, attracted further attention and screened at festivals worldwide. He ultimately won 8 Jutra Awards, an award for Best Canadian Film from the Toronto International Film Festival. And then he took quite a bit of break. And I read somewhere that he wasn't happy with those 2 movies that he made on a personal level, and he wanted to wait until he really developed his skills as an artist before he went into making another feature-length film. And then in 2009, he followed those 2 films up with Polytechnique in 2009, which was a film about the shootings that occurred at the University of Montreal in 1989. It premiered at the Cannes Film Festival with several honors, including 9 Genie Awards. Basically, again, like I said, the Canadian Oscars. And then he went on to make Incendies in 2010, and we'll talk about the career going forward. But that's basically how he started his early films, his early short films.
So I can see why he wasn't happy with his first two films, so August 32nd on Earth and then Maelstrom. There are hints of what he likes to do as a filmmaker, but the tones, they're actually quite comedic. And he contrasts comedy with like very bleak seriousness and intense reality and extreme stakes and drama and events. And they do have like an odd comedic tone. It's not quite what he does now anymore. And
Maelstrom especially.
Yeah, because Maelstrom it's a strange film. It's about this woman who accidentally kills a fisherman with her car and covers it up and tries to evade anyone noticing it was her. And she actually ends up falling in love with the fisherman's son. And it actually turns quite romantic.
But it's also narrated by a fish.
Yeah, and the talking fish is the one, it opens the film. It's like this bloodied fish on a butcher board about to be killed and butchered. And it's like, I'm going to tell you a story. That's my French impression of the fish.
Pretty good impression.
A love story. And this fish keeps coming in and out of the film, narrating the events like a storyteller telling a group of people like around a campfire or like a bedtime story. And it's mixed with like romantic comedy in the second half, and it's kind of odd, an odd tone. And you can see hints of the visual brilliance of him, and you can see things that he likes to do with his cinematography and filmmaking. And then August 32nd on Earth, it's also a strange comedic film. It's about this woman who, after her near fatal car accident, so car wrecks were involved in both of his films, catalysts for the stories. This woman survives a car wreck and decides, I'm going to embrace life and I want to make a life. So she asks her best friend to impregnate her, her male best friend. But their other friend is secretly in love with her, and then that forms a love triangle. And it's a bit of a tonal thing. He does like a lot of whip pans. He does a lot of like breaking the fourth wall, where characters will like look at the audience for the joke to hit. And it's cute. It can be funny, but it's not quite who he is as an artist. We've come to learn with his last 8 films. We know who he is now. And so I think that maybe he was trying things that weren't really true to him in his visions as a storyteller. And so I can totally see after that break in Polytechnique, we're getting a very controlled, very intense film exploring the depths of humanity and exploring complex characters in a very patient way, while also showcasing very intense violence and graphic imagery and also to beg questions within the audience and make them question what's happening in the story and relate it to the world around them. So Polytechnique is such a step up from his first 2 films. I can see why he took that break, and he actually did a lot of music videos in between to maybe reconfigure like what do I want to do as a storyteller. I see.
I feel like for him, he embraced this sort of coldness in his storytelling. Not that that's a bad thing in a movie. You know, a cold tone is really effective in storytelling. I mean, look at Arrival, look at Prisoners, these very sort of movies without hope in a lot of ways that you're trying to get hope to an extent. But his films they do have a cold tone to them with the characters, with the storytelling, the themes in the films. But it's so effective because that's something I feel like he's embraced in his career.
There's a grimness to it.
Yeah.
Polytechnique has it. Sicario has it.
Polytechnique's a movie about a shooting at a school. And then Incendies is a horrific story about this young woman, and she takes it upon herself and kind of forces her brother into trying to find their father, who's been missing, and who they don't know where
after
he is.
Their mother passed away.
Mother's passing away, and she's about to pass away. Oh yeah, it's a little bit of both. It's a time back and forth, and they go to the Middle East to find their father, basically. And there's a dark tone to it and a grim tone, especially when you get to the twist. It is intense. It is shocking. It is jarring. But I think that he's embraced that really well. Even a movie like Enemy, very dark, very grim. Color tone's different than some of his other films. It's more of a yellow tone. But it still has that sense of coldness for the characters and an ominous sense of dread coming to take over and consume the world in his films, which I think is so well done when you do it right. Not that it's a bad thing to do in a storytelling device, is having a cold setting, but I think he's embraced that coldness and used it really effectively. Not in all of his films, but in several of them, for sure.
And something that he's really great with in his films is he is really strong with conveying stories with less dialogue than the average filmmaker. So films like Polytechnique, we're observing characters, we're observing the school. So Polytechnique, it follows 3 storylines, 2 victims of the school shooting, and then the actual shooter. and he actually structures it out of order, kind of like a Tarantino film, where you're getting each perspective before, during, and after the shooting. So you see what their lives were like before the shooting, the events of the shooting, and then their lives after the shooting. And we're bouncing around constantly, and we're very much observing the effects of this event on all of their lives. And it's a really interesting film. A very little bit amount of dialogue. And then also you look at Enemy. Jake Gyllenhaal, most of that time, is exploring and investigating mysterious occurrences. And there's very minimal dialogue in that film as well. He's put that into a bunch of his recent films. Blade Runner 2049 is an excellent depiction of minimal dialogue in a big movie. I mean, Kay spends a lot of screen time moving around, investigating, looking into clues, and discovering environments. And there's a sense to the imagery is so strong where Denis understands that if the image is strong enough, it's very much like a silent picture. The audience will understand the story, and you'll be able to take them along for the ride without having to spoon feed them dialogue, exposition, or conflicts. So I think he understands the power of the image and how you don't always have to rely on characters helping tell the story. You can really just do it with your camera and sets, and he's an excellent filmmaker when it comes to using very minimal dialogue.
What's been really great about an app like Letterboxd is we get great social media content from them. They go on the red carpets and premieres, and they always get to ask actors, directors, filmmakers, celebrities, your 4 favorite films, what are they? And it's always interesting to see, and you're always like, that's not true. That can't be it. Those aren't your 4 favorite films. Don't lie. But I love to see authentic ones, and I think Denis has a really authentic one because for Dune Part 2, Letterboxd was there. They asked what his 4 favorite films are, and here they are. Denis Villeneuve's, which he said, like most of us, can change any day.
Yeah.
You know, same with me. I have my favorite movies, but a month after I say what my 4 favorite films can be, or 10 favorite films, something else can pop in that top 3.
I shuffle mine around.
You know, it is what it is. I have one that stays stagnant at number 1. It's been like that for like 5 years now.
Matrix?
Yeah, The Matrix. But in 5 years, it could be Talented Mr. Ripley. Who knows? Who knows?
That could be up there.
Could be up there. It's top 10, I think, right now. But what are Denis Villeneuve's 4 favorite films according to his red carpet interview with Letterboxd? Number 1, 2001: A Space Odyssey, which he said, and I agree, is the best film ever made. So me and Denis, we're both film boys. Film boys. Number 2, he said, was Apocalypse Now, which he also says was his most watched movie in his entire life so far. And you can really see the influence of both of those. I think especially Apocalypse Now on the Dune franchise for sure, especially Part 2. It felt like a Vietnam War film at times because we have this guerrilla warfare in a lot of different ways in the deserts. So I feel like the influence of Apocalypse Now is all over Dune Part 2, especially the helicopter shots, which are terrific. He also has a great shot in Dune Part 2 with the ornithopters, not just to reference Apocalypse Now with the helicopters, but also Black Hawk Down. He does an exact replica shot of helicopters 2 on the left side of the screen, and then a foreground, a helicopter buzzes past the screen right to left, which Ridley Scott directed that movie brilliantly. It's an incredible war film, but Denis Villeneuve references his favorite movies and great filmmakers in his movies like Dune Part 2, which, check that out if you haven't seen it.
So that's in Dune.
Is it the first one?
Yeah,
Okay.
So James Cameron and Denis Villeneuve had a one-on-one talk for an hour, and James Cameron goes, so I saw this, the ornithopter, it was just like a clear reference to Black Hawk Down, and Villeneuve goes, you're the only person who noticed it. He's like, you're the only person who got it.
Imagine being that smart that you recognize a shot like that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's so cool, like, Denis Villeneuve, obviously Dune has been his childhood dream to be able to be in that world and to be able to make that film, but also Ridley Scott being one of his favorite filmmakers, Blade Runner being one of his favorite films, and be able to make a sequel to that is amazing.
Yeah, well, so number 3 on Denis Villeneuve's 4 favorite films is Blade Runner from Sir Ridley Scott. Such an incredible film. Obviously, he made the sequel to Blade Runner 2049, which I've read interviews where he said he was insanely hesitant to do it. He was afraid to do it, but then he eventually did it. And was the clear-cut choice? Like, who would you want to make this movie? I think Denis Villeneuve was obviously the person for the job. And then I also read an interview with him recently where he's like, I can't believe I made that movie. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I thought I could do that. But everyone loves Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. It's one of the best sequels ever made. It did such an incredible job expanding on that world. And we've never even done a solo episode on that movie before.
We haven't.
Really should.
Okay, we'll do it soon.
We should do a Blade Runner and 2049 episode.
Fuck yeah,
back to back. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Hell yes.
And his 4th favorite film for Denis Villeneuve is Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977, I believe. Yes. Which is just an excellent movie. And clearly, you see the influence of science fiction on Denis Villeneuve in his career. We have 3 science fiction films on here, as well as a war film for his 4 favorite films.
Now I really understand his last 4 choices of directing.
Dune makes total sense now.
It's interesting because he made so many films outside of the genre until Arrival. All of his films were outside of sci-fi.
I mean, you got a $15 million budget. There's only
You
so
gotta
much
do
you
what
can
you
do.
can.
Yeah, you can't
You
make
gotta
a
do what you can
sci-fi
do.
epic.
But also, like, he was smart with building his relationship with Warner Brothers. So, after Incendies and Enemy, Prisoners was a great screenplay. It was on the Blacklist. The Hollywood Blacklist is a website for screenplays that are unproduced. And that script was there for years.
What a script. Original screenplay, too. It's insane.
It's a spec script. It's one of those movies that it's like, you feel like it should be based on a novel, but it's not.
Like Seven.
Yeah.
I think those are in the same category.
Yes.
These exceptional script, these mystery thriller crime scripts that, how is that? It's so well written that you feel like it's based off a book.
Exactly.
It's so dense with rich detail.
And so he took the same step as Nolan, as he made a couple of really good films, and then he signed on to a Warner Brothers project, this being Prisoners, a Warner Brothers film, and made that because I'm sure the script he was like, this is such a strong script. This is something I can do. They made it for $40 million, so he was upping his budget. He was working on a bigger landscape. He was working with probably the greatest cinematographer who has ever lived, Roger Deakins, with a great, huge ensemble cast of A-listers. You get Viola, Hugh, Jake, Maria Bello, like incredible actors, Paul Dano. This is really upping your game. You're working in Hollywood for Warner Brothers for a script that they purchase and want to produce, and you're working with big stars. This is a big step up, and that's a test. And Nolan did the same thing with Insomnia. That's a script that Warner Brothers had. They were developing it, looking for a director. Soderbergh recommended Nolan and helped him get on that role as director for Insomnia. Al Pacino, Robin Williams, he knocked it out of the park and directed the hell out of that movie. And Villeneuve did the same thing with Prisoners. He fucking crushed it, made an incredible film. Then he gets Sicario, and then he gets Arrival, Blade Runner, Dune Part Two. So Arrival, Blade Runner, Dune, and Dune Part Two, Warner Brothers Productions, huge properties. He probably wouldn't have been able to get those if it wasn't for his work on Prisoners.
Yeah, and I like how he makes Prisoners and Enemy the same year. Obviously, it's not always the plan. It's usually like, when's this movie? Can it come out for the studios? And it just happened to. They came out both in 2013. And Enemy, I think, is such an underrated film in his career. And it's a 6.9 on IMDb, which I think is insanely low because it's a really well-made movie. I remember the first time I saw that movie, I became obsessed with it for like a year. I thought it was really fascinating. I love doppelganger movies. They're really interesting. It's a great mystery. It's really cool. It's also connected in a lot of ways to a movie like Arrival in terms of loops and circles in a lot of different ways. But then that and Prisoners coming out the same year. Both thrillers, both mysteries, but completely different in a lot of different ways. Color tones and everything. I mean, Enemy has this very yellow hue to it, this color to it. Prisoners doesn't. It's a colder film. It's bluer, but still just 2 excellent movies. And Prisoners, I mean, $40 million budget, grosses $120 million at the box office, which is excellent. Really great.
Wow.
Profitable film. Plus an 8.2 on IMDb with over 800,000 reviews. Prisoners is a beloved movie. It is such a banger. People always talk about it. It's excellent. Excellent. It really is. It sort of has fallen into a shadow the last couple of years because of the Dune movies and Blade Runner on his filmography, I think. Because in Arrival as well. I mean, he's had an insane four-picture run with Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, Dune Part 2. That's up there for all-time filmmaker runs. I mean, it's pretty close to Coppola in the 70s.
It's the greatest science fiction run for sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, Coppola in the 70s, he does Godfather, he does Conversation, he does Godfather Part 2, then he does Apocalypse Now. That's an absurd 4-year run that may never be topped, but I think Denis Villeneuve's knocked on that door right here with the last 4 movies.
Yeah, it's an incredible run. I think it's up there, but it's hard to judge it against something like Coppola where he's changing genres.
And it's aged for 50 years.
Exactly. So, but I do think that the last 4 years, he's really helped define blockbuster filmmaking like Nolan. It's Denis Villeneuve and Chris Nolan they've proven themselves with multiple pictures of being really the most creative, artistic visionaries making huge studio movies.
I would say Cameron would be up there too, but he's only made 2 this century.
Yeah,
if Cameron had made more than just the 2 Avatar films in the 21st century, I think he would still be in that conversation because he was for so long. But because he's just been so out of nowhere with just this franchise, that's why I love Avatar. But I wish he was doing some other stuff, man. I really do, because he's such a good director.
I also agree. I think that if Jim Cameron had been he could have made like 5 films in this century. Imagine that.
But it's his life, and the Avatar movies are absolutely incredible.
He can do whatever he wants.
They push the boundaries of technology to heights that we never thought possible for at least another 50 years.
The thing with Villeneuve, even if he's changing genre, especially starting with Polytechnique, but even Maelstrom has very intense moments. He tends to choose to explore very intense stories, very extreme stories. So on Sunday, it's intense. It's very extreme.
We won't spoil it, but it's a tough movie to watch at times.
And then Arrival, it's very impactful, very dramatic, and very, very emotional. Sicario, it's intense. It's grim. It's disturbing. Enemy, it's mentally disturbing. Eerie. He's always exploring very much like I wouldn't call his filmmaking gritty, but he explores dark themes and grim themes. But unlike most filmmakers who explore those kinds of stories, his filmmaking and color palette kind of stray away from what you would generally go towards.
You know who I think of when I think of Denis Villeneuve? It feels like his style is a blend between Christopher Nolan and David Fincher.
Yeah.
This coldness, these dark themes about humanity, as well as some light themes, but also blockbuster filmmaking with insane attention to detail, surgical precision filmmaking. Every frame has so much purpose, so much detail, so much momentum and energy, as well as great characters. So I feel in the color schemes as well, he has a very similar color tone before the Dune films to David Fincher. You know, he has a yellow tone in some films, a bluer tone in some films. Nolan doesn't really do that. Dark Knight, you could say, does have some bluish tones to it to an extent, but it's really just night sequences.
But Nolan, he just keeps the film stock.
Yeah,
that's the look.
Yeah, he doesn't grade his movies for a specific color. Maybe Dunkirk, you could say, has a bluish hue to it to an extent.
But again, that's the stock.
Yeah. So, but I would say for Fincher, blue, yellow, Denis Villeneuve was playing with that with his early films. But then the blockbuster filmmaking, the massive productions, huge blockbusters, huge audience attendance. Fincher's never really had that. Nolan has. But I think that Denis Villeneuve is David Fincher, and Christopher Nolan had a baby. That's Denis Villeneuve.
That's a great point, because you could say like a movie like Panic Room feels like it could have been directed by Denis Villeneuve, and then you could say like Prisoners feels like it could have been directed by David Fincher.
And then also Inception looks like a movie that Denis Villeneuve could have made.
But I do think he tends more towards the extremely controlled route of Fincher, because Nolan actually does quite a bit of loosey-goosey filmmaking. He likes to use handheld a lot. He likes to.
I don't call that loosey-goosey.
No. He likes to improvise with his actors, and he has a little bit less of a control per se, because I saw his interview of one of the actors on Oppenheimer saying it was Safdie, and he's like, yeah, so we walk in to the set each morning, and Nolan's like, okay, let's block out the scene, and he's like, okay, and then he'll figure out like, oh, I want to shoot it, just a couple handheld shots, this, and that. That's pretty much it. Whereas, so he's planning what he wants to do, but he's not extensively planning like someone like Fincher or Villeneuve will, with extreme amounts of storyboarding and concept art and pre-planning. And there is less of a controlled aspect to Nolan's filmmaking that Fincher has, and I think Villeneuve tends to lean towards Fincher's controlled aesthetic. You're not going to see much handheld in a Villeneuve film, ever. You'll see a little bit in Prisoners. Otherwise, I can't really think of a film. Maybe one shot in Arrival. He tends to completely avoid handheld cinematography.
It's interesting. I watched this great little bit from a podcast that Desmalchian was on. He was in the recent film Late Night with the Devil. He's in a couple Nolan films. He plays the Joker's sort of assistant in The Dark Knight, which was actually his film debut. I didn't know that was his first movie he'd ever done. And so he says that he was just supposed to play an ambulance driver, so he's getting ready. He's like practicing in his car, just pretending to drive for camera. And then
that was his prep for learning the lines in that scene.
Yeah, so he didn't really, he said he had a couple lines, that's it. And then he showed up to set for the day of filming, and And then the wardrobe is a cop. He's like, why do I have a cop wardrobe? And then one of the assistants comes in and he's like, all right, so just so you know, this is the scene you're going to be doing today. It's a completely different scene. They explain to him that you're going to be basically one of the Joker's henchmen and you're going to get kidnapped by Harvey Dent. He's like, well, this is crazy. So even a movie like The Dark Knight, Nolan's very secretive, but you could call that control, maybe loosey-goosey control to use your term, because I wouldn't say it's loosey-goosey, but it's also improvisation to an extent for your actor. Be like, all right, that's not what you're doing. This is what you're actually doing. So now you have to flip on a switch, and it's a $150 million movie, so you better perform.
Yeah.
And also, it's also a very secretive approach because they didn't want information getting out about Dark Knight, obviously, when they're filming it. But it's a really interesting approach to not have your actor prepared for the specific scene that you're shooting that day and just kind of see what happens. I like that.
It's fantastic. It's such a cool story. And obviously, he's worked with Villeneuve in Prisoners, in Blade Runner 2049, and then in Dune, as one of the
No, he's Piter.
Yeah, he's not. I was doing the Sardi card theme.
Yeah,
because he's in that scene.
Yeah, he's in that scene. Yeah. He plays the Mentat Piter for Baron Harkonnen in Dune Part 1. Not the guy.
He was really well cast.
Not the starter car DJ.
So Villeneuve, speaking of DJ, he is like a DJ. So in that character in Blade Runner, in Dune Part 1, they used, since he's a fan of Ingmar Bergman, they used the characterization of death that Ingmar Bergman produced with that long black cloak, pale skin, and shaved head. And then, so he used that as inspiration for the design of Des Malchian's character in Dune.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of frequent collaborations, besides working with Des Malchian a couple of times, Denis Villeneuve obviously has frequent collaborators, like many filmmakers do. For cinematographers, he's worked mostly with Roger Deakins and Greg Fraser. Greg Fraser has done the Dune films. Roger Deakins, Prisoners, Sicario. He also has worked
in Blade Runner.
In Blade Runner 2049. And then for Arrival, he had a different cinematographer. He had
Bradford Young,
who did Solo, a Star Wars film as well. Or Star Wars story, sorry. Star Wars story.
Get it right.
For production designers, which is an incredibly important part of blockbuster filmmaking, all movies in general, but I think for massive budget blockbusters, science fiction epics, very important. Patrice Vermette, who's done the Dune films, as well as Dennis Gassner, who's worked on him on films like Blade Runner 2049. For music, his two most common collaborators are the late Johan Johansson, who did several of his films, including Arrival, plus Hans Zimmer, who's done many of them. He's done, how many in a row has he done for
3 in a row?
He's done 3 in a row, because Blade Runner 2049, Johan was the original composer for, but his music was not used, and eventually Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch came in to redo the score for Blade Runner 2049. Not that Johan Johansson did a bad job. Denise said it just didn't fit the tone of the movie. And it's actually one of the last albums Johan released before his passing. I can't remember what it's called, but you can look it up, and people believe that that's the Blade Runner soundtrack, the Blade Runner score that they gave him back, basically. Like, this is your music, you can release it however you want. The rumor is that it is the Blade Runner score, and people have actually synced up the music tracks to scenes, and it fits really well. So give it a listen to. I can't remember what it's called, but it's really, really cool. And also, for other frequent collaborators, he has Joe Walker, who is his most frequent editor on his films. And then for his most common actors in movies, we have Josh Brolin and Dave Bautista, who have both been in 3 Denis Villeneuve films.
Yeah, I mean, Brolin's been with him for a minute.
Brolin's been the Dune films as well as Sicario, and then for
those 4.
And then for Dave Bautista, Dave Bautista's also been the 2 Dune films as well as Blade Runner 2049.
And then Jake and him, Enemy and Prisoners, and they've been trying to work on a project together. They've both said multiple times the last few years they're working on getting something together because they enjoy working together.
Well, maybe he'll be part of his next film, because there are a couple of rumors going on about what his next project will be for Denis Villeneuve, because he's obviously going to take a break from Arrakis. He's not going to do Dune Messiah Part 3 if he gets the green light for a little while. He said he wants a break from Dune. He wants to break from the desert, probably, unless he makes Cleopatra starring Zendaya, which is a rumor. That's one of the main rumors going around for Denis Villeneuve's next project, and he's the most in-demand director right now, obviously. Another rumor is a science fiction film that's set in space on a spaceship. I don't know much about it, but that's pretty much most of the information we know. I think it's based off an original screenplay as well, not off a book. So maybe that's a movie that could star Jake Gyllenhaal. Who knows? So there are two big rumors right now for Denis Villeneuve's next project. None of them are confirmed. It could be Cleopatra. It could be a science fiction epic in space. Or who knows? Maybe it's Doom Messiah. We don't know.
There's something that I've been really impressed with Villeneuve ever since Sicario, and that's his direction of action. And he's obviously done a lot of action since then with Blade Runner, Dune, and then Dune Part 2. And he's a very unique action director where he still has that patient filmmaking even with action. He doesn't like to chop up his fight scenes. He doesn't like to get a shit ton of coverage of close-ups, of shaky camera, of anything. And he's still just as patient with a shootout or a car wreck or anything, or a big war scene, as he is with a dialogue scene in a room. And I think that's something that a strength of his filmmaking, because I think some filmmakers, if they have a big shootout or a big fight scene, they're like, I'm just going to get a ton of coverage and we'll make the scene work in the edit. Whereas Villeneuve, he still keeps it to mostly mediums and mostly wides. Even the knife fight at the end of Dune, very, very little bit of amount of coverage. And it's pretty simple how he shoots. It's very simplified. Not simple, but simplified. And I think that's really, in terms of the action genre and depiction of action, I think he separates himself with how you're always well aware of what's going on. He lets the audience maintain complete presence and you know what's going on in what situation. You're never overwhelmed. You're never confused with the environment. And there's something methodical about his depiction of action that I've always really liked. And I think I know it's not super accurate in terms of military formations through tactics, but I would say that the scene in Sicario on the border is one of his best depictions of action. It's
incredible.
Really intense.
He does scenes that we've seen before.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen shootouts. We've seen two cyborgs fight before. We've seen a lot of this. We've seen guerrilla warfare. But he shows it and does it in a different way, in a unique way. The Blade Runner 2049 opening fight between Kay and Dave Bautista's character, Sapper's Tree, great track, is incredible. And like you said, it's simplified. It's a short fight scene, not that many camera angles, but it's unique. The sound design's incredible. The combat's great. The reactions to the punches is really cool. So great job by the stunt team and stunt coordinators on these pictures as well. Throwing them through the wall is really cool. We've never really seen it on that like that done before. The Sicario border shootout's excellent. The opening shootout with Emily Blunt inside the house is really great as well. You know, the diving through the doorway, dodging the bullet, and shooting at the same time. Really cool, simple. It's not this huge shootout. It's not massive.
He's not whipping the camera around. Yeah. He doesn't even really move the camera
very
that much.
Controlled.
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049, in addition to the opening fight scene, the last fight scene's really great too. Between Love and Kay, it's really great on the water. Again, the sound design helps so much in these films as well. And then Dune, couple great fight scenes. Even the training scene between Paul and Gurney in the training room at the Atreides home in Caledon's really great as well. But once we get into Dune Part 2 with the guerrilla
Duncan's fight's great.
Yeah, Duncan's fight's awesome. Duncan's excellent. But the guerrilla warfare in Dune Part 2, I've never seen anything like it before. The sequence with the harvester attack between Chani, Paul, and the other Fedaykin is so cool. Hiding behind the giant pieces of metal that are moving the legs of the harvester. It's excellent. The guns, the weaponry. But it's very controlled, but it's unique. It's nothing we've never seen. We've seen people shoot rocket launchers at helicopters before, but he does it in a new way. It's really effective.
And in terms of a new way, he's always been open to exploring using new depictions of filmmaking, with experimenting with cameras or styles that haven't been used before or have just been very rarely used. And I'm talking about, first of all, Sicario with the incredible night vision sequence. And the body heat sequence, of the final mission underground. And we're getting a combination of night vision and then heat vision with that gray color tone.
Thermal camera,
thermal vision, which is really sensational. And I had never seen anything like it in a film before in my life.
I'd seen thermal vision on videos on YouTube or documentaries, something like that. But to actually see it used as a storytelling device similar to how Jordan Peele sort of changed the game for day for night filmmaking using infrared cameras and infrared film with the IMAX film, shooting 2 film stocks at the same time to create that brilliant day for night image. The majority of the night sequences are filmed broad daylight. The sun is high. It is bright as fuck in the middle of nowhere.
Jordan Peele confirmed this.
This is 100% confirmed. We've tried to make videos about it, but people are, it's not true. It's not. They shot during the day. Nope, the night sequences are during the day. A couple maybe at night, but most of them, it's just Daniel Kaluuya is on a horse or just standing next to a fence in broad daylight, but with different kinds of technology, infrared technology, obviously, which was used for Dune Part 2, infrared cameras used for the Harkonnen arena sequence, just kind of pushing the artistic elements of filmmaking and storytelling to use new pieces of technology, or not new technology to the medium, which has existed. Infrared cameras have existed for quite a while, but to use that in filmmaking is really interesting. It's brave. You're pushing the boundaries. You're doing new things. You bet your ass that people are going to start doing this in more films more often. We should try to use infrared cameras. But, obviously working with great cinematographers and DPs that know the science, they know cameras, they know what they're doing helps as well. But it's really great to see filmmakers at the highest level making the biggest movies of the year experimenting with new techniques.
Yeah, I look at the Harkonnen arena sequence on infrared as an extension and a step up from the thermal vision in Sicario. And I expect him to experiment more with different kinds of filmmaking tools that others don't.
Surreal image.
Yeah.
When you see the characters you've been watching for an hour and a half, you see them in thermal. So you see their facial structures, but with thermal imaging. It's really cool.
It's really interesting. And that sequence floored me, and then I just kept, after I watched Dune the second time, when I was thinking of that sequence, I kept thinking back to that sequence in Sicario.
I didn't even think of that one. I haven't seen Sicario in a while.
That's why I get paid the big bucks, bro. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
The medium bucks, Anthony.
Yes, the medium bucks.
The medium bucks. The middle class bucks.
Middle class bucks.
Still lucky to make those middle class bucks.
So how about we do a ranking of our personal favorites ranking of Denis Villeneuve's
This is going to be
films.
tough.
Would you like to go first?
So all of his features, but we'll just use like Incendies forward, or do you want to do Polytechnique in there as well?
I've seen Polytechnique.
Yeah.
I'm going to put them in.
All right, so
just do what you've seen.
From Polytechnique on, so from 2009 on. So I will go first. My number one Denis Villeneuve film.
No, go from 10 to 1, bozo.
10 to 1. 10 to 1, I'll go Polytechnique. Then I will go, so that's 1. Number 10. Number 9, I'm going to go.
Oh, wait, sorry. That's so if. Do you want to put August 32nd on Earth and Maelstrom on it? Because if not, then it'll be a top 9 list.
Let's do. I've not seen August 32nd. I've seen Maelstrom.
So, okay, do a top 10 list.
Okay, so top 10. Number 10, Maelstrom. Number 9, Polytechnique. Number 8, Enemy, which is crazy because Enemy's so good. Number 7, I will go Sicario. Number 6, I will go with Incendies. Number 5, I will go. Woo, this is tough.
It's tough to rank his movies.
Really tough to rank his
movies.
Man.
Take your time, man.
Number 5.
Through,
yeah, I didn't write this out. I'm just going off the spot. Number 5, I will go with.
You do have to pick something though.
I know. I'm just trying to figure it out. Number 5, I will go with. Believe it or not, I will actually. I'll go Dune. Mm-hmm. Number 4, I will go Arrival.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, I will go Blade Runner 2049. Number 2, I will go Prisoners.
Ooh.
And number 1, I'll go Dune Part 2.
Well done.
Thank you. I think it's a pretty solid list.
It's a good list.
And the thing is, I love all these movies.
Yeah.
That's what sucks. Like when I put Sicario, I think it was 7. I freaking love Sicario.
So you hate Sicario?
I freaking love that
Why
movie.
do you hate Sicario,
And
man?
Incendies is incredible, but yeah, I'm going. So my top 3 are Dune Part 2 is number 1, and then I have Prisoners number 2, and then Blade Runner 2049 number 3.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right, I will do my top list of his movies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 films.
Here we go.
At number 11, I have Maelstrom. At number 10, I have August 32nd on Earth. At number 9, I have Enemy.
Whoa!
I love it.
I had it at 8.
I love it. At number 8, I have Sicario, which I still love. Still love Sicario.
You don't have to point this out. That you hate Sicario, Anthony.
At number 7, I have Polytechnique. At number 6, Dune Part 1. Number 5, Arrival. Number 4, Blade Runner 2049. Number 3, Prisoners. I think we both put Prisoners high. That's good.
Put it number 2.
At number 2, I have Dune Part 2.
Oh!
And then at number 1, for Denis Villeneuve's films, I have Incendies.
You have it at number 1.
Number
Wow.
1.
Good pick. I respect that.
If you haven't seen the film, just watch it. Just watch it. Just watch it.
You watch me watch them.
You watch me watch them.
That's incredible. I think I would have Incendies number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 5, I think.
Hey,
It's,
it's okay, man.
it's an incredible film. It's an 8.3 on IMDb.
So it's a 4.4 on Letterboxd, so people like it.
It's an excellent film. It just doesn't have that many watches, but maybe people will go back to watch it now.
Maybe after this episode, it'll rise to the ranks.
Well, I think because he's so popular, people are probably just going to keep going through his filmography. That's usually what happens when directors start getting popular. Because Denis Villeneuve, I see people associate him with the meteoric rise, and I'm just thinking he's been here for a while. It's just that people haven't really recognized him yet or seen all of his movies, but he's been consistent. He's made a movie every 2 years or so for the last 15. Yeah. And they've all been really, really good.
Well received.
Different genres, different tones, excellent filmmaking, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But really, it's interesting. It's not until you get into that blockbuster level that people really start to open their eyes. Because it's interesting where someone like Jordan Peele or Ari Aster, they've only made 3 movies up until this year coming out.
Yeah.
Last year with Beau is Afraid was his 4th? No, third movie.
4th.
4th? Yeah. Ari Aster's 4th film. Where's the 3rd?
4th.
Hereditary, Midsummer.
I believe he made one before Hereditary.
Well, he made a feature, but it wasn't a big one.
Yeah, but it's not as
true. All right,
it's still a film.
So, all right, so yeah, so 4-ish, yeah.
Yeah.
So they've been in people's minds, and they've been in
the
culture, the zeitgeist, way longer or way more than it feels like than Denis Villeneuve, who's been making movies longer than them. He's made more movies than the both of them combined. And it's interesting that it wasn't really until, I would say, Arrival to an extent, but really for Dune, people really started saying Denis Villeneuve as a household name, possibly. Blade Runner.
We've been on him for a while, obviously.
Yeah, it was probably Blade Runner.
But I think I can totally agree with the cultural conversations, especially online about him, weren't really even close to the level as like someone like Ari Aster and Jordan Peele. Because I think that Jordan Peele, you could call meteoric rise with his first film.
Yeah, one movie, $300 million at box office,
huge
massive
movie, wins an Oscar. That's a meteoric rise. That's like it out
overnight,
of nowhere,
yeah.
0 to 60. The guy from Key and Peele made Get Out,
which is a great show.
Yeah, Key and Peele is one of the greatest comedy shows ever. I love it. But no one expected that to happen. You know what I mean? He just came out of nowhere. He's like, I remember he was like announced that he was making a horror film. Everyone was like, Jordan Peele's making a horror film?
Yeah, $3 million horror film out of nowhere.
And then that's a meteoric rise, just boom, like a rocket ship. Denis Villeneuve's had a very slow rise, a steady rise. So
Damien Chazelle, meteoric rise. Whiplash,
yeah.
Massive overnight success.
Yeah, then La La Land wins Best Director. And so that's meteoric rise. Villeneuve took it. No one
took him a while.
No one knew who he was until On Sunday, and that was his 4th movie. You know what I mean? Outside of Canada, and very small, really big film lovers. And so he's had a very slow, steady rise. He's just at the top now. But it's kind of like when a stand-up comic becomes famous. It's like, oh man, this guy came out of nowhere. It's like, or gal came out of nowhere. So like they've been doing stand-up comedy for probably 15 years.
Yeah, sometimes there is an overnight.
Yeah, sometimes
boom.
there is. Yeah,
like they've been doing it.
Yeah, but it definitely wasn't a meteoric rise for him. He's rised as high as you can go, but it took him over 20. It took him 26 years. You know what I mean? To get here.
And then someone like Christopher Nolan, his 4th movie is a Batman movie, so that's a quicker rise, but not as meteoric as someone.
Yeah,
with
still
one
not
movie.
meteoric. Yeah,
I concur. I think that's a silly thing when people. I've seen that a few times on online. I'm like, what are you talking about? Meteoric rise? Guys been making movies for freaking 20 years. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So there is something with Villeneuve that he's been able to do in his filmmaking even though he doesn't make, like you would say, like surrealist films like David Lynch movie per se, but he does like to play around with surrealism and really cool abstract imagery in his films. And so films like we mentioned earlier, The Talking Fish and Maelstrom, and then you get in Enemy, the giant. I don't want to spoil it. Quick spoiler alert for Enemy. If you haven't seen Enemy,
Warning! Spoiler warning.
So there's a great surrealist ending in Enemy where Jake Gyllenhaal approaches a doorway and finds a giant tarantula in the room that's afraid of him, representing femininity. Giant spider. It's like, what? That's pretty wild. And
he just left the room, and it was his wife. Then he goes back to the room.
Yes. And so I love that he's always played around with things like that. And I think he really got to stretch those desires with something like Blade Runner 2049, where you have the dream creation and memory creation. And he got to really have fun with that, I think. Because the first shot we get of the memory maker is she's in a forest, and then a door opens in the actual trees, and you're like, what the hell? This is amazing. Like, it's an incredible abstract image. Obviously, it's not, it's just a, obviously, computer program, but he was able to play with imagery like that in a different context, Blade Runner 2049, but he's never strayed away from creating really abstract imagery, and then he really got to double down on it in Dune Part 2 after drinking the water of life from Shai Hulud. And first, we got the incredible sequence after Jessica drank it, and then another sequence with Paul when he drank it. And I liked Jessica's sequence where we saw hundreds of faces of Bene Gesserit just being revealed through shadows and light, and then also the blue water of life mixing into the womb, and also great music.
Theme.
And then same thing with Paul. A great sequence we got was he saw Jessica as a baby being born as a Harkonnen, as well as seeing the faces of the lines of the Atreides in Harkonnens. And so I think that something like that gave Denis basically free reign to experiment with surrealist imagery again.
He's always done it early in his career. Even his short films are very surreal, very metaphorical. He's great at inserting thematic elements into the visuals and the storytelling. That's what a lot of great screenwriters and directors, they get their theme in there. Plenty of movies, they don't have much of a theme, but they're still cool movies. They're still a lot of fun. But the all-time movies, their themes are present everywhere. And there's a short film he made in 2008 called Next Floor, and this is the short film that he won at Cannes, the film festival.
In 2008 or 2009?
2008, he won Best Short Film at Cannes. And it's about, this opulent banquet of abundance, and we have this round table, this long table of just elites eating tons and tons of food. That's what it is, and they're being served by servants. And that's kind of the plot. It's showing hierarchy, showing abundance, showing greed, and how some people in society, they have so much while the rest of us have so little, but there are consequences to that, and it destabilizes everything.
Kyle.
Huh?
Selena Kyle.
And it destabilizes everything, and it has consequences for all of us. And throughout the course of the short film, their plates keep getting full. They're gluttons. They're just destroying this food. They're gorging on this massive spread of the most expensive food.
It's like reminiscent of the Platform movie.
Kind of, yeah. And so they're eating and eating and eating, and then they fall down a floor. This entire table falls down a floor, and all the elites fall with the table. And then all the servants look down the hole in the floor, and they go, "Oh, we have to go to the next floor and go back." And they clean all the elites off and bring the elites more and more food, and they keep eating. Same thing happens. They fall down another floor. And then the servants go back down that other hole, and they go, "Oh, we have to clean them off and serve them more and more food." Meanwhile, they're getting dirtier and dirtier, but they still keep gorging on their food and eating all, it's a representation of gorging on economy, gorging on the wealth of a country or the world. Just a very select few get to do it, until eventually this entire table of elites fall completely down all the way to the basements into nothingness. It's really cool, visually stunning. I mean, falling down the floors is really great, but then there's a sequence where they fall through like 20 floors, this table of people sitting around it. It's really excellent, really well made, basically no dialogue at all. Almost none. And it's just really great storytelling. But the themes are all there. It's all, and he's always been such a great visual storyteller. This is all the way back in 2008, and it's just an incredible film. But visually stunning. The themes are in the visuals. The themes are in the story. They're present throughout it, and a lot of great filmmakers have that skill.
He's just always, even in a film like Prisoners or Sicario, he still puts so much intention behind it. And he puts so much intention and he's got an objective, he's got a theme, and he's trying to illustrate that with the camera work and with the lighting, and with the blocking of scenes. So he does that so exceptionally well that other filmmakers might not have the prowess to do, where no scene is a simple scene for him, and he always has intention behind every shot, which I think is important as a filmmaker. And like, I mean, just Prisoners, think about the trees, using the trees throughout the entire film consistently.
Slow push-ins.
Yeah.
Slow push-ins are great. How about we run to our intermission?
Let's run.
Take a little break, and then we'll come back and talk about the great career of Denis Villeneuve and more.
And more.
Even more. But before we continue, the best way to support the show is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Why would you want to become a patron? Because you get access to the ad-free version of every single episode, as well as access to bonus episodes every single week of the show. Plus, you get awesome perks like access to our Discord. You can also get custom episodes. You pick a topic, we'll do an episode for you. You get free merch. We have a great community we've built on Patreon. We'd love for you to join and see what's going on there. Again, patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Another great way to support the show is leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This helps us get seen by new listeners and helps us chart on these platforms. And at 5,000 Apple ratings, I will be getting a review.
You'll be getting a tattoo.
I'll be getting a tattoo, not a review. I'll be getting a tattoo. Sorry, I was up kind of late last night. I'll be getting a tattoo at 5,000 Apple ratings, so leave those ratings. I'll read one off in just a minute. Another great way to support the show, and the best way to do it, is just share us. Word of mouth is the best way for a podcast to grow organically. So with your help, we can reach the highest heights possible if you share us with everybody you know.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. Be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com and to get 10% off your order right now. They have a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library. If you love Denis Villeneuve films, want to get some posters for Sicario, for Prisoners, for Dune Part 2, for Blade Runner 2049, of course, the only place to do that is at movieposters.com. They have all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for your poster needs. Incredible quality prints, very affordable prices, and they even have the movie theater quality double sides. This stuff is amazing. So be sure, for all of your poster needs, to go to movieposters.com and use our promo code right now, Raiders10, to get 10% off your order immediately.
Immediately! All right. You know what we should immediately do is head to our intermission and begin with the movie quote competition. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This one might be a little easy, but it's just a lot of fun.
I don't know. You said before the episode you had a good list of questions.
It's good. Yeah, it's a good question.
All right.
But it might be a little easy. Statistical fact. Cops will never pull over a man with a huge bong in his car. Why? They fear this man. They know he sees further than they, and he will blind them with ancient logics.
I have no idea.
Really?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you'd nail this. Let me say it one more time. Statistical fact. Cops will never pull over a man with a huge bong in his car. Why? They fear this man. They know he sees further than they, and he will blind them with ancient logics.
I don't know.
Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
The stoner friend who has the giant.
Yes.
It's a giant
The
bong
thermos.
that compresses into a thermos.
Yeah. That's a good one. I love how he leaves his windows open of his car and locks it. All right, next up. My quote question. All right. This man. You have to find this man. This man.
A man with one arm.
One arm. No,
a man with a hook for an arm. Man with a hook for an arm killed my wife.
This man.
This man. The Fugitive.
Nice.
It's good Harrison Ford impression.
The pointing, yeah.
You know who did the best Harrison Ford impression? River Phoenix. Indiana Jones 3. Great opening.
Belongs in a museum.
So good. Guess this movie released here, Anthony. Stalker.
Stalker? Can you remind me what this movie is?
Stalker.
Oh, Stalker from
Not Stalker. Stalker.
Gotcha.
Like you're stalking in the night.
Gotcha. 1983.
1979.
Shit.
Stalker. I was gonna say. I mean, it's pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yep.
Pretty close.
Andrei Tarkovsky.
Yes, sir.
What year did The Fugitive come out?
Good question.
This man.
It's definitely 80s. Or is it? Oh shit! Is it 90s? Fuck. Fucking A. 1991.
93.
Oh, so close.
Close, but no cigar.
So close.
Yeah, he's pretty old. He's up there in that one. Tommy Lee's old in that.
I mean, he
too.
looks good.
Well,
I mean,
Tommy's always
he's
looked old.
looked old since he was born.
Yeah, he was born like Benjamin Button.
He was born with scruff and a cigarette in his
He was
mouth.
born with wrinkles.
Well, all babies are born with wrinkles.
Moving on.
Have you ever seen a baby?
I've seen
They
a
look
baby.
like old people.
They do look like old people.
Moving on. Movie pop quiz time, Anthony. What was Jake Gyllenhaal's film debut?
Huh. Jake Gyllenhaal, film debut. Was he a lead?
No, supporting role.
Supporting role?
But a movie with A-listers.
Movie with A-listers.
Yeah.
He was supporting role.
Like a legit movie.
It was a proper movie.
It was a proper film.
Okay. Can I get a hint as to who the lead actor is?
Billy Crystal.
Billy Crystal. Did not help me.
Give up.
Who else is in it?
Fucking, hold on, let me look it up. Fucking. I almost said the title of the movie. Give me one second.
Billy Crystal and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Came out in 1991.
Damn, 1991.
Billy Crystal is the lead, as well as Jake Gyllenhaal's in it. I don't think any. Jack Palance, Bruno Kirby. I don't know if that's gonna help you.
I have no fucking idea.
David Paymer.
About a boy. No.
City Slickers.
Oh, I've heard of that. Never seen it. City Slickers.
Me neither.
All right, what was the first Francis Ford Coppola film Harrison Ford appeared in?
I feel like this is a trick question.
Is it though?
I feel like it might be. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it.
Could be overthinking it.
Apocalypse Now.
That is incorrect. The Conversation. In 1974.
Fucking A, man.
Conversation. He plays the boss's assistant.
Dude, I forgot about that.
Gives him the files. Yeah, he's the middleman.
God damn it. That's a good question.
Yeah, definitely not a trick question. It's a pretty straightforward question.
No, I'm not like it's like a...
I worded it strangely.
No, it's like you know I'm going to guess Apocalypse Now.
Yes, I knew you would.
Yeah.
That's why I structured it as what's the first one he appeared in.
Yeah. Good question.
Thanks, man.
All right, Anthony, do we have any haters this week? Unsubscribes?
Yeah,
what do we got cooking?
We got a ton of haters. It's been a great week.
While you do that, I'm going to pull up a review.
All right, so M. Ryan Reynolds wrote, listening to the A24 draft episode, the fact you guys didn't draft Ghost Story broke my heart. Sad to say, unsubscribe.
I wanted to. However, I think I explained in the episode that I didn't think it would gauge well with voters. I was trying to make the best voter-friendly
You made
team.
the political choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I adore A Ghost Story. I really do.
Yes. That's a great film. All right, next, Cam Combe wrote, it's the fact that y'all had a side chat about how no one respects animated films, and then Marcel the Shell with shoes on is just sitting off to the side waiting to be drafted. Broke his little heart, unsubscribed.
I love Marcel the Shell. Saw it twice.
Yeah, we did. Quinn Kong wrote, Green Room going unpicked is by far the biggest travesty I've heard on the show yet. Unsubscribed.
No, it's tough.
That was a tough one. Yeah, it was hard not to pick that one.
I try to pick movies. We try to pick movies that would be the most popular, I think.
It's not that well loved, although we adore it.
Yeah, Green Room's excellent.
Quinn also said Swiss Army Men take this one, so
Interesting.
he voted for us. Me and Blake.
I wonder what the score is right now. Let me see.
Yeah, check it out.
Right now, score of our A24 movie draft, which I feel like we should be in first. Wow.
Where we at?
You guys are winning 64% of the vote.
Fuck yeah, boy. Hell yes. And you got the Iron Claw. Pff, fuck yeah.
Man, I thought me and Garrett would be taking it.
So you're taking the Zone of Interest, man. Not not people have seen it.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, but not enough people have seen it. Yeah, but not enough people have seen it.
Anyways,
Moving Lady on. Otaku wrote, "How come there's no mention of Talk to Me unsubscribed?" Almost.
That's right. Forgot about Talk to Me.
Sonny Wheeler wrote in our 1994 year in review, "How dare you put live action Lion King poster instead of the original?"
Yeah,
unsubscribed.
Someone said that like 2 months ago.
Yeah, you did the live action poster talking about Lion King original.
So, sometimes when you're editing, you just make these mistakes.
Sometimes you're on autopilot when you're editing.
You're like, oh, there's a Lion King poster. Let me pop it in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's technically animated.
Yeah, technically. All right, next up, Elliot wrote in our Midnight Ruin on Letterboxd review, 4-star review. "Hope this gets more fame than that one book that keeps popping up when I search for it, or I'll unsubscribe." Thanks, Elliot.
Is there a book called Midnight Ruin?
I guess so, maybe. Yeah.
I have to look into that.
Next up, Alexander Sullivan, about our live show. You gave him a heads up about when the show is and where you can get a ticket. And Alexander wrote, already bought my ticket. Unsubscribe.
Alexander, we'll see you there.
See you there, pal.
It's going to be in Boston at the Middle East, April 18th.
April 18th. Next up, Anthony Jones in Kong and Godzilla. Ken Watanabe's character dies in Kong OTM. What's that one?
Attack of the Monster.
Kong.
What is it?
King of the Monsters.
King of the Monster, yeah.
Yeah, we're obviously not experts. So, of course, he wouldn't be in any more movies. He also wasn't in Skull Island. Because of that, I must unsubscribe.
Yeah, I was trying to remember which one.
And I replied, as you can tell, we're a couple of experts.
We say as experts.
And then finally, Elric wrote, "You guys definitely deserve more subscribers on YouTube. You make excellent content.
Thank you.
Consistent, relatable, entertaining. I've been listening to you guys on podcast apps for months now, but I never subscribed to your YouTube channel until now. I hope you guys never have an opinion I just hope you guys never have an opinion I don't agree with, or I might have to unsubscribe." JK, I'd never do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elric.
Thank you.
That was a fun batch of unsubscribes.
I like that one. We have a great 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts from TD Dunk. Is that a Boston reference like TD Garden and Duncan's? We'll find out. TD Dunk. Excellent. Really excellent. 5 stars. First review I've ever written for anything. You can't help but enjoy this podcast, from masterclass editing to stellar hosts and all the top tier content in between. If I'm going to listen to a podcast, it's this one. You can tell how much work and enthusiasm is poured into each episode, week after week, setting the bar for what a podcast can be. Wow.
Thank you for pointing out the editing.
Side note, for real, put on one of their Harry Potter episodes and try not to enjoy it. In a week, you'll have binged all their HP content, which is a lot, by the way, and signing up for your first ever Patreon account. What?
Thanks, pal.
That's just how it goes. I don't make the rules. TD Dunk, thank you so much.
Thank you for pointing out the editing, because we put a lot of work into the editing.
Too much work.
Ton of work.
Yeah, it's
ton of work.
It's exhausting, man.
Clearly, so much work that James mixes up the Lion King movies.
Bro, listen, man. Like, you've never made an error on an edit.
I have.
Yes, you have.
I have.
Mine just keeps getting pointed out. But TD
mine
Dunk,
go disguised.
TD
no
Dunk,
one notices mine.
Okay. TD Dunk, thank you so much for that review. It
Thanks,
was
pal.
Excellent. All right, Anthony. What's your streaming recommendation?
My streaming recommendation is Source Code has just been put onto Max. Great science fiction film. Super fun. Incredible. Love it. Definitely recommend checking it out.
I feel like you've put Source Code as your recommendation 7 times on our podcast.
Probably true.
I think it's insane how often you do it.
That may be. That's a deep track quote.
It's like reference.
That's a reference.
That
may be.
I swear you've done it twice. 3 times in 2023. 3 times at least. Source Code.
At least once. I'll give you once.
At least 3 times.
Well, it's now on Max. Okay, so it's an awesome movie.
Here,
whatever.
let me search.
My whole goal is to get people to watch Source Code.
I'm gonna search Source Code in our Google Docs. Actually, you do a lot of your intermissions not in the Google Doc, right? Never mind.
I'm just saying, Source Code's awesome. I'll do it again next episode. I'm gonna do it again next just to annoy you.
You're not gonna annoy me. I'm just pointing things out.
It's not annoying you.
You're probably gonna annoy the listeners.
No one's annoyed,
bro.
They won't be annoyed if they watch Source Code on Max.
Sounds like an ad. My streaming recommendation.
Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?
The best cocoa around. Rococo Cocoa.
I've tried other cocos. This is the best.
This is the best.
Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?
What are you talking about? My streaming recommendation, if I can get to it, is When Evil Lurks. Finally watched this horror film from Argentina, which, a lot of people were talking about last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's really excellent. I really enjoyed this film. It's brutal, gory, clever, unique. This interesting world was built and set up, and I really found it fascinating, and the gore was excellent. It was so cool, and I fucking thought it was epic.
We're doing
I
a
really enjoyed
Patreon
it.
bonus review of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So When Evil Lurks, check it out. All right, shall we get back into our episode on the great Denis Villeneuve?
We shall. All right, so I wanted to do a couple of superlatives.
Cool.
Now, we haven't prepared for this, so you cool with thinking on your feet?
I am an expert at thinking on my feet.
You're not going to panic or
I
anything?
literally think on my feet so well that my head's on my feet. It's pretty great.
Okay, so, all right, get ready for this, man.
I'm ready.
I want you to name your favorite shot from each one of Denis Villeneuve's films.
I am not prepared for this. How dare you think I can think on my feet like this?
So we can do it together, film by film.
Okay.
So we'll start with Polytechnique. Do you have a favorite shot from that film?
Ooh, it's tough. I mean,
I can go first if you like.
I would probably say that tracking shot inside
The cafeteria
where all the students are there, and then the gun starts going off in the distance, but they don't really know what's happening or where it's coming from. They just hear it. That's probably it, because it's really terrifying. Because that movie reminds me so much of Gus Van Sant's Elephant, which is about the Columbine shootings.
Yeah.
Both true stories. This one was a shooting of feminists by an intense misogynist who thought he was going to end feminism by killing a bunch of women. He killed, 4 women and injured several men and women in the act of the massacre.
Yeah.
But I think that shot, especially because when you're scared and you don't know what's going on, it's just the dread on everyone's face of also it's confusion as well as, is something happening? Are we okay? Are we safe? It's a great shot, though.
Pretty rare long take for Villeneuve as well. Pretty rare. Great pick. I actually picked a shot from the actual, one of the first occurrences of shooting it's just one of the rooms in the school, and there are students at tables working, and then there's students like at printers printing stuff up, and he has the camera on a female student, one of the lead characters, and then we don't even see the shooter. We just get out of nowhere. He holds the camera for like a good 20 seconds to ease us into the moment, and then bum 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 bum. We get just reactions of gunfire, some sprays of near the wall, the drywall erupting, and then the girl next to her gets hit, and then her eardrum gets blown out, so she starts bleeding, and she drops to the floor, and Villeneuve goes down with her as well. It's just an exceptional shot, incredible sound design, and to be able, the whole perspective of that movie, he's not like, when he's showing the shooting and showing the shooter in school, he's always taking the perspective of the students and victims, like seeing him. They're watching him rather than like someone like Gus Van Sant. He chose to follow the shooters in their perspective, shooting everyone. Villeneuve did the opposite of showing the shooters from the perspective of the students, which worked in a brilliant way to contrast Elephant. And that shot's really exceptional, so disturbing, but it showed the banality of the moment before, and then the chaos, the confusing chaos as well. It's a great shot.
Excellent shot.
All right, next up we have Incendies. What's your favorite shot?
Whew, it's a tough pick. I think, for me, when I think of Incendies, the bus on fire is probably the first shot that I think of. But if I had to pick a favorite shot when it comes to the movie, I think I might go for when she's in the pool and she gets out of the water, kind of like on her elbows, and she looks up and she sees the heels of a man, and she sees the tattoo on his heel of the militant group from the country. Is it Iraq or Iran? I can't remember which country it is.
Palestine.
Is it Palestine? Okay. Of the tattoo of the militant group. But obviously, I don't want to spoil what that means to her in this point of the story. But it's when you watch the film and you see that tattoo and that shot, it's shocking. And it kind of made me hold my breath and, my heart stopped beating. It was like that kind of an effect on me. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be my favorite shot from the film.
Great point. So just the shot of the heel?
The shot of the heel with the tattoo. Yeah.
Got it. My favorite shot is obviously the most iconic shot from that film. It's the poster, and it's just a brilliant, just visual with the bus on fire behind her, and then she's just on the ground on her knees weeping, and it's just a powerful image. There's a reason why it's the most common image used to represent the film. It's just an incredible piece of filmmaking, and just again illustrating a theme just with a shot. It's unbelievable shot. It's one of his best shots ever.
Yeah, it's up there.
Probably was a challenge to make. All right, next up, let's go with Enemy. What is your favorite shot from Enemy?
Tough one, because Deakins is the GOAT, but there's so many great silhouettes in this movie too. And incredible silhouettes, incredible shots of characters in boxes, in squares. I'll probably pick the silhouette of Loki, Detective Loki.
Enemy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was like, silhouettes? What's he talking about?
I don't know why I thought you said prisoners.
Favorite shot of Enemy.
Enemy. All right, so Enemy, my favorite shot, probably gonna be when he's in the hotel room with his doppelganger, and they're both looking at each other's hands.
The close up of the hands,
and they're looking at in the shot. They're silhouetted by the clotheslines. I mean the window, the sliding doors, but they're just looking at each other's hands. Looking at each other's hands, they're like, we have the same hands. I think that's probably my favorite shot.
Yeah, the close up is a great shot of both hands, because they really do look like the same hands. It's a great pick. I love in that secret performance room, the shot of the metal tray with the cover, the round cover, and you can see the reflection of the entire group in that shot, and then they lift up to reveal the spider on the dish, on the silver platter. I love that shot. So cool. So interesting. I like the hand shot. That's a good pick. All right, next up, we have Prisoners. Now you can pick your favorite shot from Prisoners.
Detective Loki silhouetted. Mm-hmm. This is after they find the RV, and it's at the gas station, and then Alex drives the RV into the trees, right at the edge of the parking lot, and Loki takes out his gun, and he's slowly approaching in the rain, and he's silhouetted by the illumination of the gas station behind him, and it's exceptional. I saw a great video of breaking down how they lit this, and it was really brilliant because it required quite a bit of light, and it looks awesome.
Yeah,
it's great
fantastic. Shot. For Enemy,
Prisoners.
For Prisoners. All right, I have, for my favorite shot, it's between two shots. I got to pick one. I'm going to pick about halfway through the film when Keller's just really just struggling to handle what's happening. He gets into his car and closes it, and then in the reflection of the window is the branches of a tree in the yard. And it's winter time, so the trees, there's no leaves, it's just barren branches. And they're streamed across the window like chaotically. And then they just do a slow push in on that, and it just really does a great job of illustrating the chaos inside of Keller's mind and his lack of being able to control what's happening. I think it's a great shot.
Great pick.
I also love the shot of Loki bashing his keyboard on his desk.
I love that shot.
I think that's just an incredible shot. Great image, and him just like breaking down. All right, next up, Sicario. What is your favorite shot?
I'm probably gonna go. Such a tough one. This whole movie looks good. I think I'll pick the third act when they're going in the raid. They're doing that raid, but they're going through the tunnels.
Sure.
And there's a shot from inside the tunnel, and the sun's almost down completely. But then we have a silhouette of, I can't remember which character it was, with the knife out, and they're just slowly walking into the tunnel. But like, it's just really visually stunning the way they're walking into the tunnel, silhouetted with the knife out from their side. It's awesome.
That's a great pick.
Yeah.
I remember one time we watched that. We were like, did that Rick Dalton?
Yep.
Like, that's a good shot. Or like that funny video those guys made. They're like, it's like watching a movie with two film bros, and like their friend is like trying to fit in. They keep seeing his friends. He's watching his friends. They keep pointing out, oh, that's a cool shot. And in this guy's head, he's like, why do they say that's a good shot? Like, he's trying to analyze why they're pointing certain things out. And then he tries to give it a shot. He's like, oh, that was a good shot. And his friends are like, really? Like that shot?
Why would you say that?
Why would you say that?
But it's just striking in the way the silhouette they're walking in. So it sort of looks like they're walking in place, but they get the image gets bigger, larger. It's really cool. It's a cool shot.
My favorite shot of the film is actually a pretty simple one, and it's at the end of the film. when Benicio's character confronts Emily Blunt's character to get her to sign the NDA, and to sign off on their version of the story, and she's refusing to. But the way it's shot is it's just simple. They're sitting at the table in her dining room, and then the kitchen light is on behind them, and then she's lit. Her face is lit by the light, and then Benicio is backlit. So he's basically silhouetted, and he's very dark, and he's just completely framed by the silhouette. And it's a great contrast of light and dark in that moment, and basically really illustrating what that whole fucking point of that movie was in that moment. Great shot. Very simple. Just a couple of lights on in the kitchen. That's all you need to do.
That's all you need to do. Yeah, there's a lot of dark scenes in that movie that are done really well, especially with that character because he's the wolf. He operates in the dark.
So there was a Benicio del Toro interview where he was talking about. So it was near the end when his character kills that corrupt cop on it, and then he's able to take the cruiser into the drug lord's property. But
watch your ums, bro.
Sorry.
You're on spree right now. It's
Sorry.
Like every other word. Give me a headache.
I'm like Barack Obama
You're like,
right now.
So Benicio del Toro.
Sorry. Thanks for the heads up. It was bad,
Jesus,
wasn't it?
it's terrible. You're gonna edit this one. You're gonna watch playback on that.
And so he kills the driver, and then he takes out the guy, the cop. But I remember I saw this interview where Deakins apparently used just like 2 lights for the whole sequence.
The whole thing?
And then Benicio said he was talking to the other actor he was working with, and they were sitting in the car, and they were like, they could barely see. And I think because like digital cameras were still kind of new on this scale.
Yeah, well, not new, but in terms of
not as widely used.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
And so Benicio, who had been working on film sets for many years, used to film, used to so much light, he was like, he was talking to the other actor. He's like, man, is this like gonna look good? And they were like, there's hardly any light. And then they were like, okay, we'll trust him. He's the master. It's Roger Deakins. Like, he knows what he's doing. So they weren't even sure how the scene would look because he was using such minimal light in that sequence. But yeah, that movie is very dim.
Yeah, well, it's dim, but also specifically his character. So many dark sequences. For example, when he goes to her hotel or apartment at the end of the film too.
Yeah.
When he walks in, it's stealthily. It's so dark.
Yeah.
So I love the lighting in that movie. Sicario is a brilliant film.
It's great use of practical lighting in that film. All right, next up, Arrival. What is your favorite shot?
This one's a tough one because half the movie are these gorgeous silhouettes of them in front of the giant mirror. I mean, the giant screen.
Yeah.
I would probably pick one of those, and I'll probably pick when it's a shot from behind her, and she's got her headphones on, and there's one of the ink blots circles in front of her, and then Alvis and Costello are on left and right of her, out of focus in the distance in the smoke. So probably that one.
I would say my favorite shot of that film is after she takes off her hazmat suit for the first time and approaches the glass, and then Villeneuve goes to a close-up of her. It's just Amy Adams, super bright light, but it has so much more. It's not artistically like the most impressive shot, but it's so important for the character and for the situation and for the story. I think it's a brilliant shot.
Sure is.
Next up, Blade Runner 2049.
Man, this gets harder and harder.
What's your favorite shot?
My favorite shot from Blade Runner 2049.
It's hard to I'm trying to recount these movies in my head.
I'll probably say...
Oh, I know mine.
You go first.
So my favorite shot in the film is actually a leading dolly shot where Kay returns from his sapper mission. He's all bloodied and bruised, and he's walking through that big, wide hallway at LA headquarters, the precinct, and we're leading him. It's a good long take. It's about 15 seconds of him walking, and he's distressed, and he's just trying to get on with his day, and every time a human walks past him, they call him a slur of some kind. And he just skin job, or there's something else. Someone says another slur, and every time it happens a couple of times, and Gosling just like cowers and just drops his face down and looks at the floor, and then once he passes that person, he looks back up and continues his walk. I think that's one of the most powerful shots of the entire film, and it really does a remarkable job of showcasing who this is and their place in the world. It's just a fantastic moment of the movie.
I'll probably pick what was my iPhone wallpaper for about a year. It's the silhouette in Las Vegas in the orange smoke.
Film boy.
Yeah, that was my background for like a good year.
Yeah.
So I'll go with that.
Nice. All right. Dune Part 1.
Oh man, this is you know, there's a shot early in that movie that I'm just gonna go with my gut on this one. There's a shot early in that movie that I think just flies under the radar.
What is it?
And I never really see it very often when people talk about the cinematography from that movie, because the desert landscapes are brilliant, the ships, everything, and the whatever Getty Prime, if you're there, or even Arrakis, the shots are terrific. It's so well made.
Yeah.
But there's a shot of Paul when he's on Caladan, and he's studying the books of the Fremen.
Damn it!
And it's this slow tracking shot. It's moving left to right, and Paul's back is towards us. He's sitting down on a couple steps, and the shot is peering through a round doorway, circular doorway, and it's just a simple tracking left to right. But I think it's just a brilliant shot when it comes to the framing, the movement, the production design, the effects in it. It's brilliant. It's really sensational. And I remember the first time I saw the movie, I'm like, look at that fucking shot. Look at that fucking shot.
Yeah.
No one ever brings it up, though. I think I probably brought it up in our episode when we did it back in 2021 when it came out. But, man, I freaking love that shot so much. You know what I'm talking about?
That's what I was going to pick.
Oh.
I'm going to have to pick a different one.
Sorry, bro.
Of him studying.
Beat you to it.
I have another one with Paul. There's two shots. It's hard. Ugh. Which one do I go with? I can only choose one. Okay, I'm going to go with the money shot. It's the reveal of Shai Hulud's mouth, with Gurney holding onto Paul on the platform of the ship as it's flying away. And then we finally see the first hint of Shai Hulud, its mouth, its teeth, just enveloping the spice harvester and consuming it, with them in the foreground. I'm going to go with that shot.
Very cool.
Dune Part 2, man. What's your favorite shot?
Woo! Woo! I already know what yours is, so I'm going to pick something else.
I actually picked a different shot.
I'm going to pick what was and currently is my iPhone wallpaper.
Let me see.
Well, actually, no, it was my shop. I made this one.
Okay.
So I have a poster that I edited to make it iPhone. I made my own wallpaper.
Fantastic.
I made this one. But before that, my wallpaper for a year was from a shot from the trailer, which eventually I knew what it was going to be, but people who didn't read the book didn't know what the shot was. It was.
Did you read the book?
A silhouette. Silhouette of Paul, of course, because there's so many good ones in this film. A silhouette of Paul on the cliff after he uses the family atomics.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Behind the Emperor's ship, and the explosion is sensational. But then when you watched it in theaters, the shockwave just shook everything.
Mm-hmm.
Shook the cameras. It was really cool. They did a really cool shake, whether they did in poster or practically, I don't know. And just the explosion comes, the wind comes, it blows past him. That's the best shot in the movie for me.
Great pick. Very Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
My favorite shot of Dune Part 2 has actually changed from Paul walking, silhouetted with Shai Hulud erupting behind him.
Traveling south.
Great shot. Great theme. And it has actually the moment right after that. It's just the both films just led to this moment of when Paul arrives south, and there's that huge crowd waiting for him, and not the overhead, which is brilliant. There's that overhead with thousands of heads, and they slowly start separating where he's walking through, and it's just a sensational shot. But it's a shot right after that where, again, similar to the case shot. Maybe that's why I picked them. I just react to them both that way. We're leading Paul, and the bodies are separating as he's walking through the crowd. He's got the hood on, and he has transformed. He is a different being, and you see that in his face. Shot perfectly.
He's the Kwisatz Haderach now.
With that theme, that incredible theme Hans created, that you hear first traveling south, and then you hear it here. It's this really great, deep chords. It's like a shaking. It's almost like it's a shaking cello.
It's dark.
It's like the strings are shaking while they're being played. This really deep, ominous, bassy string. It's an incredible theme, and it plays so perfectly with that moment. And then Chalamet's face, just like he's moving through this crowd, but it's not like he's happy to be there and nobody there is happy to see him there. He's an outsider, and he's almost looked at like an enemy, and he's like an invading presence in the community. And that shot of leading him through the crowd is just unbelievable. I love it.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps.
There's so many great shots in it, but I mean, the shot of him traveling south with Shai Hulud erupting behind him in the background, which is obviously a metaphor of his power now.
Yeah.
That's exceptional as well.
Yeah.
There's so many good shots in that movie. And even I love the shots of him when he's having his visions, the way they shot it with the orange hue coming from the top of the frame.
Yeah.
And because they did so many new things with Part 2 as opposed to Part 1, especially when he's having visions, even though both using the IMAX footage as close-ups, but then adding to it now with that orange hue of the spice taking effect in him.
For me, picking a favorite shot doesn't just necessarily come down to the visual framework and look of the image. It has as much to do with the what I'm feeling when I see the image and what it means to the story, just as much as just like getting a really cool looking shot. You know what I mean?
That's why I picked the tattoo shot on Incendies.
That's why I picked the K shot, and that's why I picked like this Paul shot, because it's just such an important part of the film. And it's not like the money shot, you would say. That being said, it is just, to me, it's just as powerful as that Shai Hulud shot.
Yeah. I'd love to talk some more about the style of Denis Villeneuve.
Let's talk some more,
different elements of his movies that, he's an auteur, and he has a very specific style, even though he has many influences that you can see. And I think one of the best parts of his filmmaking is the production design. He builds stellar worlds with his incredible teams, rich with detail, so much purpose. He's also got this great skill for establishing shots.
Yeah.
Think of, obviously, recent films like Dune, Blade Runner 2049, the opening, establishing shots. But he does a great job establishing big scenes, important scenes, or establishing the world with these massive wides. Or it doesn't have to be a massive wide. I mean, something smaller. But still, he's great at filming large exteriors. And I think it's a skill that not a lot of filmmakers have. Because anyone can just get a wide shot of something. But to do it artistically, but then also to use it at the right times. Not overdoing it, not establishing shots consistently. Like a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers use like a filmmaker's handbook, do an establishing shot, cut to a medium, cut to a medium, cut to a close, cut to a close, cut to a medium wide. It's very simple to fall into the patterns of basic 101 filmmaking, but he does it with great artistry with his incredible team, and I think the establishing shots are so incredible in every one of his movies.
That's a great point. And he does a great job of contrasting extremely wide angle lenses with extremely long lenses. And so a great example is in Blade Runner 2049, and we open with these huge, expansive wides of the farms, and then we see Kay's ship flying, right? And then what's the next shot? He doesn't do like a closer shot of the ship to get the audience a better look at it.
Is it Kay asleep?
Kay, not just asleep, but he gets a close-up of like the corner of his shoulder and then like his hand on the dashboard asleep. And then the alarm goes off, and then he stirs awake. So we get these really intimate, super close-ups with extremely long lenses, and then that he does right after the wides.
Well, it opens with a close-up of an eyeball.
That's true, yeah. But
just like Blade Runner.
Yeah, but that's like a macro lens. He does a great job of especially with Greg Fraser, a great job of contrasting these extremely long lenses with very shallow depths of field, which works perfectly for Dune, where you're talking about visions, where you're talking about a character that is in the gray, where you're talking about a storyline that the audience isn't even sure if they should get behind where the story is going. And with Paul, they did an exceptional job in the first film and in the second film when he's having visions, when he's inhaling spice, when he's unsure of reality. They're doing these extremely long lens close-ups with very shallow depths of field where it's a close-up of his face, but only like even just his nose or just his eyes in focus. The rest of it is blurry. So these very shallow depths of field that contrast so beautifully with the expansive wides that they capture right before it.
That's a good point. Good point. We talked about themes. He uses themes with his visuals. Enemy, a great example of having your themes present through visuals, are the clothing. You look at our two characters, the two doppelgangers. Our lead character is always in light colors. He's in like white or light blues. And then the doppelganger, the bad boy. He's in dark clothing. He's in black leather jacket. He's got black motorcycle, black helmets, as well as body language. The body language is different between the two characters, so you can have your themes present through visuals, through body language, through wardrobe,
And with reflections in
yeah,
that movie.
that's a really common thing that he does in his movies is having themes present through visuals.
Yeah. And this, like, going back to the sets, some of the best sets we've seen recently have been in his films.
Oh, 1,000%, maybe the best.
And so, first up, in Arrival, the interior of the ship is such an incredible piece of design, and it's so brilliant.
That's
And
Patrice Vermette.
Yeah, so against what we would have expected to see. This stone, this textured wall, extremely minimalist, like so minimalist. And it's so against type, and that's what was so shocking to us. And then Blade Runner 2049, so many great sets, whether it be the Las Vegas exterior set. I love the filing set, that huge room of all of the memory files dating back decades when he's being led by the clerk. Incredible set. I love the set of the water tanks in Wallace Tower. So many incredible interiors. Obviously, the play with light on water as reflections in that film multiple times, in Love's office, and then in Wallace's huge interior with the water and the wooden platforms. Those are just some of those incredible sets I've ever seen, and they were so striking. And then to compound on that with Dune and Dune Part Two, the Sietches are a couple of my favorite sets, especially the Southern Sietch. I love the play with light, these beams of light illuminating and really showcasing how massive the Southern Sietch was, as well as the huge water tank of all the water of the fallen Fremen. That was a beautiful interior, as well as the incredible contrast of Getty Prime, which I'm telling you, there's no right angles in Getty Prime's architecture anywhere. It's all rounded.
Well, I'm seeing it again tonight, so I'll let you know.
It's all rounded. There's not a single right angle in that interior, exterior, that entire planet. It's really interesting.
No, there are right angles. I did the episode. I saw photos of the right angles.
Oh yeah, like where?
I mean, some of the structures, yeah, they're right angles.
Okay, maybe, but still,
The rounds are it's
it's
circular,
round
yeah.
everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's a great contrast with the Atreides. Sharp lines everywhere, and stone, like solid stone.
Well, plus the
Right
Getty
angles.
Prime has a sterile feel to it.
Yeah, exactly. And so the interiors and exteriors of the Dune world are absolutely miraculous feats of production design and costume design as well. So I think that's something he took away that he always pulled from Ridley Scott. Even if you don't like a Ridley Scott movie, Napoleon, for example, not many people liked it, but you can't help deny that movie looked incredible from the sets and the costumes, because Ridley's always a fan of let's build it and shoot it. I'm going to use CGI, but I still want to build as much as we can. I still want to have as many extras as I possibly can. Even Joaquin Phoenix, over 20 years in the business, was shocked at how big the armies were in Napoleon. Even he had worked with him on Gladiator, and he was still shocked at how many people were being used as extras. And so Ridley Scott has always put that into his filmmaking, and Denis Villeneuve has clearly followed suit, making sure to use miniatures as often as he can, like Los Angeles and Blade Runner 2049. I think they used a lot of miniature work for Arrakis and Dune Part 1, but on top of that, just building as many sets as they possibly could.
Yeah, maybe Arrakeen seemed like a miniature city.
Yeah.
Possible. It's possible. Obviously, Blade Runner 2049, the cities, the miniature work of that movie is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Of Los Angeles and the LAPD buildings. So, another thing I'd like to talk about is the tone of his movies and the narrative complexity, because it's there. I mean, there are a lot of mystery movies out there, but few are great. And Prisoners, such a great mystery film. Detective investigation film. It's up there. It's up there with 7 of all timers. But Denis, even though he's the prodigal son of science fiction, it's similar to how Tarantino's sort of the current best Western filmmaker, Denis feels like the best noir filmmaker right now, because his movies have a noir tone in quite a few of them, especially Prisoners. Arrival, there's still a noir tone. I mean, you could say Dune Part 1 has quite a noir tone. Enemy,
Very noir.
So I think he's got a great feel for that specific feel and genre, and harkening back to that tone, that great noir films of the past. And there's still new good ones that come out regularly. But but I think he's just sort of maybe the best noir director right now.
And on top of that, several of his films involve investigation or research, people reading documents, people reading screens. And like David Fincher with films like The Social Network and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, he maintains an excitement with the visuals for the audience, whether we're going through old records or looking at digital files or enhancing an image. He has a knack for maintaining the stimulation of the visuals for the audience to remain invested and not get bored when someone's going through a file. Or with Prisoners, there's so much investigation without even dialogue in Prisoners. So I think he does a remarkable job of visually helping the audience stay up to speed without getting bored.
And I love his pacing in his movies.
He gets a lot of knocks online for being boring. His films.
His pacing's slow, but not in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
It's patient, but not everyone can handle slow, patient movies. That's the sad part.
Yeah,
it's deliberate. This is pacing done to build tension. And even in Dune Part 1, everyone that joked about it's a trailer for Dune Part 2, they weren't excited about it. A lot of people said they were bored during that movie. And Dune Part 2 is a lot more bombastic. It's a little faster paced, maybe because there's just so much more going on. But I still love the pacing in Dune Part 1. And the pacing in Prisoners is brilliant. Sicario, it's brilliant. So he's a master at keeping you in tune with what's happening and just building all this suspense and tension for great payoffs.
And there's two shots that I felt are kind of brothers. It's not so much the shots, but it's the action the actors perform. So at the end of Dune Part 2, spoilers, Paul defeats Fade, and then he's coercing the Emperor into bending the knee and kissing his ring in fealty. And the Emperor clearly is hesitating, doesn't want to do it, and then Paul does this great, animalistic stomp and puffs out his chest and rises his chin up in a form of dominance. And it was like an animalistic, like a gorilla would do to an inferior gorilla, being like, show me your loyalty. It reminded me, you'll know what I'm talking about, of the Benicio del Toro's interrogation scene. He walks up to the prisoner and stomps right in front of him and puts his crotch in his face. He's trying to coerce this guy into giving him information. And then the camera cuts away and we hear just the guy screaming in the background. So we don't exactly know what was done to him. But I feel like Denis, he allows his actors, maybe he likes to direct them in a way of showcasing it's not, you can use animalistic tendencies. And you see with Dave Bautista a couple of times in the films as well, this animalistic portrayal of a human using this tactics that you would see maybe in the animal kingdom. Those two shots and those two moments really, I think, are reflections of each other in a lot of ways.
It's a really good point. I forgot about that scene with Benicio. It's intense. So asserting dominance for sure.
Yeah.
Because he's got a lot of powerful characters in his movies. And if you had to pick your favorite characters, like maybe your 3 favorite characters from his movies, who would you pick?
That's a great pick. A great question. So favorite characters, I'm going to go with Detective Loki from Prisoners. And then I'm going to go with Paul from Dune. And then I'm going to go with Benicio del Toro and Sicario.
It's a good pick. I'm going to go with Kay from Blade Runner 2049, Paul Atreides, obviously my boy, and Detective Loki as well. Those are, I think, my 3 favorite characters from Denis Villeneuve's films.
Lady Jessica is a close third.
Yeah,
close
true,
fourth.
True. Lady Jessica is really
fantastic.
excellent. I mean, she carries the first movie for sure on her back. And then, obviously, I think Luis in Arrival is also a really, really excellent character.
What are your top 3 favorite performances in his films?
Top 3 favorite performances? That's an awesome question. I think maybe Luis from Arrival is number 1, and then Gosling is K in Blade Runner 2049, Timmy in Dune Part 2, but also, I mean, Jake.
Okay, top 5.
Yeah, Jake in Prisoners as well, and then Emily Blunt in Sicario. I think those are my top 5,
picks.
yeah.
All right, my top 5 performances are, I'm going to go Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners. And then I'm going to go with, Benicio del Toro in Sicario. and then Amy Adams in Arrival, and then I Shall Go. Timothée Chalamet in Dune Part 2, and then Rebecca Ferguson in Dune Part 1.
I feel like Timmy can get a nomination for an Oscar for Dune Part 2.
He's fantastic.
That's how good he is in that movie.
He's fantastic.
He should. But I mean, it's a March movie.
It's a sci-fi movie as well.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking with someone about this recently. It's possible someone from that film could get nominated for acting, but it is
Probably be
too big of an ensemble.
Zendaya.
And no one really exceptionally stands out as a huge scene stealer because everyone's great.
Yeah, but I think Timothy, after he becomes Kwisatz Haderach, that movie is just his.
That speech might get him a nomination.
Yeah.
That speech he gives.
In the Fremen language, it's really incredible.
Yeah, out in the southern Siege. But I would say that film is a shoo-in to get every technical award category and to win them all, as well as I think it's best director, absolutely, best contender for best picture. But in terms of acting, I'm not sure anyone would get nominated.
Because what else is coming out this year that would compete with it? Obviously, Gladiator 2, Planet of the Apes.
Nothing can really compete with it.
Civil War, if that's good. Alien Romulus. Yeah, what else could be coming out that could compete with it for Best Picture?
For movie releases,
Nosferatu, I could see that being a Best Picture nomination. Megalopolis, Best Picture nomination. Maybe Kinds of Kindness. Because this movie, it's gonna be a kind of slow year for Hollywood. You know, not a ton.
You don't think Sonic will?
No, Sonic won't be Best Picture. I mean, maybe A Quiet Place Day 1, possibly, but that's a horror movie.
No, I don't see that. I do think that Dune Part 2 is... Wicked might get a lot of love.
Wicked probably will. I could see Civil War, if it's good, will get a nomination for Best Picture.
If Wicked's good, it could get a ton. I think Dune Part 2 seems to be really the front runner, and nobody seems like they'll have the juice to take it out.
It should win Best Picture.
I think it will win Best Picture.
Yeah, I think so too. I hope so.
Yeah,
it deserves it. It's really that good. But again, it's a March release, so it's tough. Maybe I heard a rumor, maybe that's why they pushed it to March, because they didn't want to compete with Oppenheimer for Oscars.
It's possible. Keep in mind, though, Everything Everywhere All at Once came out in the spring and it won 7 Oscars.
True. No, I'm just saying that's why it got pushed. I'm saying it won't win Oscars. It will win Oscars.
Gotcha.
I'm saying it got moved from November to March.
I understand what you're saying.
Because Oppenheimer came out last year. Do you remember?
I do remember, yes.
The same time as, remember Barbie?
I've heard of it.
They both came out on July 21st, so they didn't want to compete, maybe. That's a rumor.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Maybe. Because I bet you Warner Bros. Was like, hey, I mean, there's not much going on in 2024.
I think that
we could probably
it's possible, but I mean, also, no, they couldn't promote it with red carpets. People love that cast.
It was the hottest press tour ever.
Exactly what I'm saying. They wouldn't have been able to do that. That press tour, you got to think about it. That press tour built it up so much on social media. For a month, all I was seeing was photos of red carpets of them.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And interviews. So that press tour, I think, really played a big part in its success, grossing over $600 million right now, closing in towards $800 million total, I'm guessing. So I think that press tour played a big part. You have a bunch of the hottest actors alive in your doing incredible red carpets with great fashion. That, I think, really played a big part in getting younger people interested in the film that they might not have been.
So when I was in England filming, on February 2nd, we got an invitation to go to IMAX headquarters and see Tenet. You went and saw Tenet, 70mm IMAX, but you also got to see a Q&A between Christopher Nolan and Denis.
It was at City Walk.
Wherever it was. Whatever. But you got to see a Q&A and a conversation between Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve in person. How long did they speak for?
Like 30 minutes.
What would you take away from that, from Denis, in terms of maybe the questions that Nolan asked him about his career, about his filmmaking? What would you take away from that most, about the things he said?
So most of the interview was about Tenet and Nolan, and Denis was asking him. But then for the last 5 minutes or so, Nolan was like, all right, I don't want to talk about me anymore. I want to talk to you about Dune Part 2. And so he asked about... What did Nolan ask him about Dune Part 2? Because it wasn't too much. I have it on my phone. fuck.
Well, never mind. Anthony doesn't remember everybody.
I remember what he was saying about Tenet. I could tell you what Denis was asking him about Tenet if you want to hear.
It's not a Tenet episode. It's
Yeah, I
a
know,
Denis
yeah.
Villeneuve episode. It's okay. I figured I didn't know if he asked him some stuff because I didn't get to go.
Nolan basically said, "How did you build on Dune 1 and you made a better film?" And Villeneuve, especially in the conversation, they kept some things he kept going towards were practical filmmaking, then an interest in IMAX format, which he hadn't done yet until Dune Part Two, and really exploring that, as well as portraying a film noir aesthetic and making sure to build sets, a bunch of things they were talking about. And Villeneuve was fascinated with time inversion. He kept grilling Nolan about how he came up with the concept, because it's the concept Nolan helped develop with Carl Sagan.
Yeah. Hold on, I gotta change my pick for my favorite shot from Dune Part 2. I totally forgot what my favorite shot is. It's the Harkonnens climbing up the cliffside.
Oh, nice, yeah.
That's my favorite shot.
Fuck yeah.
Incredible wire work. Incredible wire work.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it looks so good.
That sequence, the red eclipse and then the black suits.
Fucking awesome.
Incredible contrast.
Really great stuff.
Dude, I was so right about the reds and orange tones in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked great.
Yeah.
It did look really great.
I think it all around looked way better than Dune 1.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's incredible how much he built on it.
Yeah. Now that Dune's aging, just only 3 years, but you can really see a clear difference between Part 1 and Part 2. Massive differences. All right. I think I'm feeling pretty good about this
Yeah,
episode.
this is a great one.
I don't have much more else to say besides I love his films. We've done episodes on Prisoners. We've done episode on obviously the Dune films.
We did a Blade Runner episode.
No, we didn't.
We didn't?
No.
I thought we did.
No, you were gonna, but we didn't. We kept writing it down on the calendar, but we didn't do it.
We never did it?
And we never did it.
I thought we did.
We did not.
Let me double check.
We did a modern sci-fi film episode, but that was where it was in. We didn't do a Blade Runner 2049 episode.
Let me double check. Let me fact check you there.
Did we? No.
I believe we did.
I don't think we did.
We did it.
Nuh-uh. When
October 4th, 2023.
we did? Let me see the
Blade
thumbnail.
Runner 2049. You made the thumbnail.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Oh yeah, you're right. We did do an episode on it. We got to do Blade Runner then.
Yes.
Okay, we have not. We did an episode on
We
Blade
did
Runner
not.
2049. We've done an episode on Arrival. So we've done an episode on about half his films.
We did
A little more,
Prisoners. Yeah.
So Dune 2, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Prisoners.
We need to make another movie so we can do another
We've
episode.
done 5 episodes. We should do Sicario in.
Yeah, sometime.
I think we
this
should
year.
do that soon.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that.
Denis Villeneuve, one of the most exciting filmmakers alive, possibly the best filmmaker working today. He's just had an incredible career, and it's really seems like it's just getting going into full throttle. And I mean, after making Dune Part 2, which is an 8.8 right now on IMDb.
Jesus, wow.
It is going to be an all-timer. I mean, it's an all-timer. It's an 8.8 with 300,000 ratings. That's
not going anywhere.
That's not going anywhere. That'll be a loved film forever.
Forever.
That's a special movie. And
we put it in our top 5 of all-time sci-fi.
yeah, it's a special movie. It really is, and it's gonna age like fine wine.
Oh yeah,
because of the filmmaking.
I'm just really glad people are loving it.
I know.
I was surprised how much people loved it, because
I was worried people weren't gonna show up.
Yeah, I walked out. I was like, 10 out of 10, amazing
Immediately.
And I was like, but I was also wondering, are people gonna like it?
It's over $630 million at the box office right now.
Wow, nice job.
And I'm going tonight. It's gonna be great.
Are you going IMAX?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
City Walk, 70 millimeter screen,
Ooh.
80 feet tall. It's gonna be sick.
Wow.
Can't wait.
You gonna bring some tissues?
Probably. I can't wait. But thank you so much for tuning into this special episode, doing a spotlight on the career of Denis Villeneuve. Be sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple and Spotify. And thank you so much for tuning in.
See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Cody Moen, Andrew Hagan, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Murphy Griggs, Darian, Tyler McFly,
Mark Nikaj.
Our chosen one patrons are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts. And be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.